Welcome to another episode of OG 55. I am with the Disney Italiano today. We're talking about that big news from yesterday. Disney will be building a seventh destination in Abu Dhabi. We're going to talk about the financial ramifications, the creative ramifications, and the social and cultural ramifications up next here on OG 54. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG 55. Today, we're talking all about Abu Dhabi. Disney announced a new park and resort over there at that area of the world, Abu Dhabi. We're going to talk about it, break it down, speculate, all that good stuff. But before we do, George, where can everybody at home find you on social media, sir?
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base on Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info. And you could also check out my new YouTube channel, Citrico Central, sister channel to Orange Grove 55.
There we go. All right, let's dive right in. We got two videos we're going to be reacting to while we talk about this big news. This is from Good Morning America. New Disney destination coming to Abu Dhabi. So it's about 7 minutes. We're gonna play it, break it down, stop along the way like we always do, George. Let's rock and roll.
Let's do it.
Whatever you're doing, stop right now because we have a brand new announcement from our parent company, Disney. A whole new world is being revealed, and it's in Abu Dhabi, where Rebecca Jarvis is for us this morning. Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning, Robin. Yes, this is very, very exciting. I am standing here on Yas Island in Abu Dhabi, where Disney's 7th global theme park will be built. And I sat down with our CEO, Bob Iger, to talk about this whole new world.
So I'm excited for the UAE and Abu Dhabi. Bringing a Disneyland to a land in the world is, I think, a big deal, and it makes a big statement. And it's just a great moment.
A new chapter of Disney storytelling begins. Rewriting a land known for its architecture, culture, coastlines, and desert. The Walt Disney Company chair and CEO Bob Iger says there's already excitement brewing here in Abu Dhabi.
You start thinking about what is possible, actually envisioning a castle rising up, in this case, from the sand.
So there's a lot going on with this already, right? So on one hand, bringing Disney to another part of the world, I think is a beautiful thing, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think that what Walt Disney started with this hope and inspiration to the world, I like that kind of like growing and kind of spreading out, right? And more people are going to have more access to these amazing places that we have loved for a long time, right? But there is socially, culturally, there is a downside to some of this, right? And I want to touch upon it, right? I think financially, I think this is probably a really sound move for Disney, right? Financially, they're not fitting the bill for this thing. They're not paying for this. They're basically licensing out this park. This other company is actually going to be fitting the bill, and they're going to be licensing it out, very similar to OLC, right? So I'm sure the park itself will be absolutely beautiful. I'm sure Disney will make a lot of money on this park. Absolutely. Financially, we saw with the stock price, Wall Street seemed to love it. Okay. So financially, I think it's a really sound move. Maybe even creatively, I think it's a sound move because all that research and R&D and development going into this park with basically a blank check, let's be honest, they're going to pour all kinds of money into this thing. So the research and development for all these amazing attractions going into the Abu Dhabi park will essentially be paid for, and they could build those same amazing attractions and lands here in California and in Florida, right? So
it's going to create a lot of new jobs in WDI as well.
And create a lot of new jobs in WDI as well. Exactly. So all of that is very, very good. But here is the big issue that I have with the Abu Dhabi park. They are this area of the world criminalizes the queer, the LGBTQ community. Okay, if you're gay, trans, you can go to jail. Okay, and I think even the death penalty, if I'm not mistaken on that. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but it's pretty serious. So for me, a company like Disney, and we talk about it all the time here on the channel. How many videos have I done since I started this channel saying what an amazing man Howard Ashman is? He was part of that community. In my opinion, Howard Ashman, okay, he was a big part of saving the Walt Disney Company, because it was that Little Mermaid movie that spawned the whole Renaissance era. There would probably be no Disney Empire today if not for that Renaissance era, and Howard Ashman was a huge part of that. Not to mention the countless cast members and creatives that are part of the parks, the studio, all over the Walt Disney Company that are part of the LGBTQ community, right? To put a Disney park in this part of the world where that community doesn't feel safe, I'm at issue with that. I don't like that, okay? Because this community is a huge part of the Walt Disney Company. This community has helped build this company. So while I understand why Iger and Josh D'Amaro and the Walt Disney Company are moving forward with Abu Dhabi from a business, financial, and even a creative standpoint, my heart goes out to the LGBTQ community. We have friends, family, part of that community. And it is sad that a lot of our friends and family are not going to feel comfortable visiting this park, understandably so. What message also does that send to the community? Disney has claimed that they're very inclusive. They're welcoming to everybody. So when you kind of get situated in an area of the world that is not so inclusive, how does that look? And I know this isn't the first time Disney has done this, so I'm not just trying to say that at all, but I mean, this is a big deal, man. And this area of the world, sketchy human rights record, all that stuff. So look, like I said, creatively, financially, it's probably going to be a success. Culturally, what it means on that front, I'm disappointed. But what say you, George?
Okay, so I'm going to try to choose my words wisely of how I'm going to say this. Because, yes, I completely agree with you. It does hinder that part of the demographic. And it is true. You know, the LGBTQ plus community is a huge part of the Walt Disney Company. You had mentioned Howard Ashman, the brilliant, phenomenal Howard Ashman. I mean, like he brought back the Disney animation. Like, I don't think anybody could ever touch upon that. Now, I'm only going to be speaking not through my optic lens. I'm speaking through the company's optic lens. And okay. I feel like exactly of what you said. I feel like, unfortunately, the social part of the situation got overshadowed by the financial and creative side of it.
Yes.
Because I feel like if it was Disney's full responsibility that they were putting their own money into it, and this would be occurring, then I can kind of look at the company and say, okay, like, what is your choices here? But the fact that Abu Dhabi has been wanting to do something of this scale and they're willing to fork out their own money. So essentially it's Abu Dhabi's park just licensing out right. Disney property, just like OLC does. So technically Disney is not running this park. But I do get on the same side of doing business with them. You know, what does that say about a company? But I also feel like, too, with what's going on in the world today, like with the economic trades and what have you, I feel like in Iger's position, he's trying to kind of do business in his own way without more tension, because the fact if a country is coming to them and say, hey, we want a Disney park here, we're willing to fork out the financials for construction, for maintenance, for everything. and Iger's just going to turn back and say no. And I get it, you know, it's like, but I'm only speaking through a business lens. I feel like he would be put in a position where it wouldn't do well for the company. Now, again, that's separating the financials and the creativity. When it comes to the actual social part of it, it really is a shame, because everybody should have the opportunity that if they want to experience a Disney park destination internationally around the world, they should have that right for. And it's unfortunate that that there are parts of the world that are not inclined to those changes. Now, I'm going to look at it a little bit positively. Maybe, hopefully in time, maybe like through conversations, there could possibly be an agreement, you know, to, you know, that maybe they'll lighten up on the restrictions, so to speak, of how they feel. I hope that's the case.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up, because that was actually something that I wanted to follow up on. And you're right that we do have a glass half full sort of situation here, or potential. I want to say potential. Hopefully Disney moving in, maybe Disney will influence the culture over there and create a more inclusive and a more welcoming environment. It's possible.
Because all these people are very smart on both ends. Iger and DeMauro had to know that this conversation was going to eventually come up.
Of
if
course.
You're dealing with a culture that feels the way that they do and their upbringing. And I'm for sure the Abu Dhabi people have to know when you're, you know, you're dealing with the Walt Disney Company, and over here in America, you're going to be dealing with a lot of different kinds of people and their background choices. Because the one guy, which I think it'll be on this video, the one who is I think in charge of Mural, if I'm not mistaken, that he was excited to go to Walt Disney World when he was a child, and his mom surprised him. So I'm for sure that he knows a lot that goes on in these parks. So again, this might already have been a conversation between the two companies that we don't even know of.
We'll see. We'll see. I hope Disney, because I think Disney, while a corporation, and while I do think they are ultimately looking out for their bottom line, obviously it's a huge megacorp. But I do believe, as corporations go, I guess they are a very inclusive company. Like, you know, like, I mean, in the late 80s, you know, to have a gay man, Howard Ashman, with HIV was huge. I mean, massive. Ursula, the design for Ursula was modeled after a drag queen divine.
Yes.
This was stuff like, you know, 40, how long ago was that now? Like 30 some odd years ago. I'm bad at math. Bear with me here, okay? 30 something years ago or so, right?
36.
But 36, there you go. So Disney, you know, look, I mean, for a mega corp, that they are, you know, they have been very welcoming of that community for a very long time, but that doesn't mean they're perfect. And they are very much about the money. I mean, at the end of the day too. So they make sometimes I'm really proud of Disney and what they do with that stuff, and sometimes I'm really disappointed. And that, I guess, that goes with the territory of being a huge company like that. But we'll see. And like I said, I mean, I hope Disney kind of building in this area, building a resort, building a park, I hope Disney influences the culture. And like you were saying, George, they lift a lot of this, these restrictions and laws, and repeal a lot of that stuff, and change how they do. Now, there was a great thread on X that was sent to me the other day. I think it was yesterday, where this guy made a great point when he said, like, this area of the world, eventually they're going to run out of oil. Eventually they're going to run out of oil, and they're going to have to depend on tourism. And when you're depending on tourism, the laws might have to change with a lot of this stuff, because you're going to want to be able to welcome as many people as you can. So maybe with that, now who knows how long that's going to take? I don't know the timeline for running out of oil, you know, but I mean, eventually that will happen. And eventually, if they are going to depend more and more and more on tourism, they will have to lift a lot of these, repeal a lot of these, you know, the criminalization of the LGBTQ stuff and all that. So we'll see. But let's go ahead and continue, and we'll kind of dive. We got 2 great videos today we're reacting to. We're reacting to the official Good Morning America thing. We also got our friend Jack from DSNY. So we got a big show today.
Really
being
quick,
on the water.
one last thing I wanted to add before I forget, because depending on how this park is going to be operational, like what they're going to entail, they haven't specified of what's going to be in these parks. That's going to be kind of also hard to come by, that if they're adding entertainment to that, a lot of the entertaining performers that are part of Disney are part of that community.
Right.
So that's going to be very shortcoming. If Abu Dhabi doesn't hire these performers, who are they going to get?
Right. Exactly.
I heard you say castle. So you're confirming there's going to be a castle, Bob.
Yes, I'm confirming that, but we've decided that we want to build a very modern Disneyland. It will obviously incorporate a lot of our intellectual property and some of the typical stories that we tell in our theme parks.
So this is the rendering we have.
I'm smiling because it makes me smile. Yes. So that rendering depicts the land on Yas.
I mean, look, it is absolutely beautiful. Obviously, it's very vague. Okay. But the castle, this crystal kind of castle, where that's a very different castle. And look, from a creative standpoint, I like that. And I like that because all too often in the Disney fandom, we hear Disney kind of, they're cloning and they kind of cookie cutter, cut and paste stuff. This ain't going to be that. This is going to be a completely new concept, which I think is awesome. I think that's in line with what Walt Disney would have done, in the sense where Walt was always about the next thing and trying new things and exploring new creative ventures, right? So this is not your typical castle. That's actually one of the problems I had with Hong Kong, was that they just lazily copied Disneyland's castle. That used to irk the shit out of me. Why do they have the same castle at Disneyland? Like, so dumb. I was so glad when they ended up making it taller and changing it, but that was so stupid. And that was Michael Eisner. I can't blame Bob Iger for that, but that was dumb. But this is completely different. This is going to look like nothing the Walt Disney Company has ever done for a castle ever. I like that. Creatively, I like that. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, and I have to say, now the only thing is, like with Tokyo, I kind of wish that they would change up their castle, because it's basically Cinderella Castle at Walt Disney World.
Yeah.
It would kind of be nice for them to get like a little bit of originality. Now, I think it's quite interesting Bob's choice of words. He said a modern Disneyland. He didn't say a modern look to the castle. He actually said it as a whole, a modern Disneyland. So I'm assuming, based off of those words, and again, it could be taken with a grain of salt, that it's not going to be like the Walt's time of like the old frontier and then the Marceline, Missouri, walking down Main Street.
No.
Being that he used those terms, I have a feeling this is going to be a very metropolitan kind of look.
It'll be very outside the box. It'll be very outside the box. When we kind of saw that a little bit, even with Shanghai, you're not going to see the same beats. Which, again, creatively, I like that.
I do too.
I'm glad that they want to relook the Castle Park sort of model. It's boring to just build the same thing over and over again, and I don't think Walt Disney would have wanted that. So I like the fact that Bob is here saying, like, hey, yeah, this is going to be a different kind of park. Good. Again, creatively good. You know what I'm saying?
And you could tell by the look of it. Look at the shape of the park. It's not your traditional, like, spoken wheel kind of like with a central hub. It's completely modeled differently.
Right. And it's right up against the waterfront. Looks beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. It kind of gives the castle a little bit of Elsa vibes. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of cool.
Abu Dhabi. We haven't decided everything that will go into it, but we do know it will be anchored by a castle. And again, the modernization that is Abu Dhabi, the castle will be the first real modern castle that we built.
And this is it, the start of a brand new park.
Just don't make it too modern. Just don't make it too modern, because you don't want to date yourself. You don't want this thing to look dated in 25, 30 years. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know what he means by that, because from the artwork, it doesn't seem modern to me. It seems very like elegant and that artwork doesn't seem like something that would be dated in 30 years. So I don't know what he means when he says modern, but whatever he does mean, if you don't go too modern, Bob, because if you go too modern, you end up like Oliver and Company, where you watch that movie like 30 years later and you're like, oh my gosh, this movie is like so 80s. You don't want to have a castle that's going to be very dated in 3, 4, 5 decades from now. You know what I'm saying?
And you also don't want it to look like an outdoor mall. You still want it to have that charm of that, like the Disney, like fairy tale aspect of it as well.
Right, exactly. Now this park, Disney's not fitting the bill for this thing, and this part of the world, they're really their architecture and stuff. There's a lot of money in this area of the world. You know what I'm saying? So I'm pretty confident this will be one of the more visually and tech impressive parks Disney's ever done, almost certainly. And I think even Josh D'Amaro kind of touches upon that in some of these promo videos. But here we go.
We're here in Abu Dhabi. I am standing 8,400 miles away from Anaheim, California, the site of the very first Disneyland that opened in 1955. Why here in Abu Dhabi?
The UAE and Abu Dhabi is a crossroads of the world. This is a hub in many respects, but also because it is located where it is, it's accessible to so many different regions, places where we typically have, only scratched the surface in terms of attendance to our parks.
With 6 theme parks across 4 countries around the globe, Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates will soon become lucky number 7. This project has been simmering since 2017, but crystallized after Iger's visit to the region last year, when he found there was already a lot of excitement surrounding Disney.
This is a place that has a very ambitious and very exciting vision for it.
So that's interesting. So since 2017, they were kind of kicking this around, this idea. We've seen this before with Disney. I mean, we saw Walt was working on Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid. And I mean, these were films that stories he wanted to do. And finally they got around to it in 89 and even Snow Queen. They got around to it in 2013, right? With Frozen. So they've been kicking this around since 2017. So that's interesting. Now, the timing though, right now, the announcement, for me personally, I think speaks more to Josh D'Amaro. Now, look, I've been very critical of Josh over the past couple of years. Okay. I've said many times, he seems like a great guy. I'd love to get a beer with him. He's awesome, dude. But like as a person, he seems like a great guy. But in terms of like how he's run the theme park division, I'm not a huge fan. And I think he seems a little opportunistic. We haven't seen a whole lot of growth from him, but now he's running for CEO and suddenly there's this big push. It just feels very, I don't know. I'm open to hearing him out. Hopefully he's the real deal and I'm just kind of like overthinking it. But this move though, in my opinion, as critical as I am about D'Amaro, this move propelled Josh, in my opinion, ahead of Dana Walden in the CEO race. This was a huge boon for him. Wall Street loved it. The stock soared when this was announced. I mean, you got to give the guy credit. I mean, yeah, honestly, I mean, a W is a W. And for him and his career and his place in the CEO race, I think it's helped Josh a lot. And I think he is currently, and I've been saying for over a year now, I think Dana Walden has been in the lead for that CEO spot. I don't think so anymore, man. I think Josh is. But what say you, George?
I completely agree. I was leaning more towards Dana Walden from the very beginning. I have very much respect for Josh as a person. He seems like a great guy. I got to meet him. I got my photo taken with him. He was very gracious to walk back to me after I chased him down Main Street. But for that photo op. And yeah, I'm the same way. I would love to, sit down, have a beer with him, have a chat. He's a very personable, very charismatic type of person. But when it comes time for his job's sake, he just, for me, hasn't delivered the goods, and I'm still waiting on it. Nothing has officially been opened significantly under his watch as chairman of the parks. And then you're going to push this guy right into the seat of CEO after doing so previously with the blunder with Bob Chapek. And Bob Iger is running out of time, and he's not getting another chance. He was blessed with the fact that he came back to be able to rework, unfortunately, the mess that he kind of created. I'm sorry, Bob. I mean, it is what it is, but he's not going to get another chance, and that will tarnish his legacy for as long as he was CEO. So he's going to want to make it right. And I know it's not just his decision. The board members have a say so, and a lot of executives, and there's going to be a lot of red and yellow tape everywhere, but it's still going to be under his name of whoever takes over that role. But moving forward, in the last week or so, we're starting to see, Damaro kind of rising from the ashes, so to speak, as that phoenix. And right now, it seems like he's in the top contender seat for CEO, because with a project like this, of how big and ambitious it is, it's not even just the park itself. It's by the time this park is opened and operated, we're going to learn a lot more things that are going to go into this park. And that alone is going to be under his name.
And we also don't know behind the scenes what part Damaro played in the negotiations.
Yes.
And that negotiation process between, Disney, I'm assuming largely with Josh, and this company that will be building this thing, we don't know how he handled that. And he might have crushed it, what I'm saying? And the board is looking at that, what I'm saying? So, yeah, this propelled Josh. This definitely put him, I think, in the lead. And look, this is coming from someone who I would rather have Dana Walden, okay? I'll be 100%. I would rather have Dana Walden, because I've been saying a long time, I think Dana's a brilliant woman. Aside from that, though, I think that I think you need a studio person right now, because the theme parks are a pretty stable business by and large. The studio right now, though, is not a stable business, because the whole industry is kind of on its head right now with streaming still. It's a very volatile sort of situation. So I'd rather have a studio person who really knows the studio side. The theme parks, I don't think, are as important. I know my theme park people are going to hate me for saying that, but it's just the truth. The studio is far more important right now. It's way more it's all more on shaky ground. So I'd rather have like a Dana Walden or somebody who understands Hollywood better. But I'm going to have to call it like I see it. And Josh is coming up big time.
Well, and especially in order to have a successful theme park, you have to have a successful studio first.
It's the heartbeat.
Everything that you utilize to put into those parks has to be the intellectual properties you get from the studio films.
It's the whole thing, dude. The whole flywheel depends on the studio. That's why when I hear people say Disney's a theme park company, it's not a theme park company. It's a studio. The theme parks don't have anything if the studio isn't making movies. You need the studio. Yeah. You need the studio. That is the whole heartbeat and nucleus of the whole operation. Without someone
who has said that.
Oh yeah, I think we do have somebody who said that. Hold on. Do I still have that clip actually though? I don't know if I do. Oh yeah, I do. Here we go.
The real heartbeat of this company was, is, and will always be the film business.
There it is. You heard it from him himself, from Roy Disney himself.
So this will give us an opportunity to build something very, very high quality, as evidenced by so much of what's already been built here, but also the most technologically advanced theme park that we've ever built.
Disney partnering with Miral, the operators of world-class immersive experiences and attractions in Abu Dhabi. Miral will oversee the development and building of Disney's resort.
The minute you drive into Abu Dhabi, you see your signs all along the side of the freeway. Miral, Joy. Tell me a little about your company and what you aim to do with Disney.
Our company is based on creating smiles. We're here to create happiness. And this is what Disney is all about. What I truly love about Disney is that it engulfs you in their magic. I'm passionate that we are here building something that is for the next generation. It's a legacy piece. We are a part of something great.
And this is not the Miral chairman's first encounter with Disney. His earliest experience was as a child, asking his mother to go to Disney World in Orlando.
One day, it was a Thursday night, and she walked in and she said, "Everybody, pack your bags. We're leaving tomorrow." I said, "Where are we going?" And she goes, "We're going to Disney World." It was around 9 o'clock at night, and the room lit up.
Now he aims to bring that same spirit and excitement to millions here.
What is the timeline for this project? Is there a timeline?
Yes, there is. As fast as possible. I think it's imperative for us to bring these new experiences to the region and the world. And of course, we're not going to compromise on quality. We're going to make sure that what we built here in Abu Dhabi is going to be special and it's going to create everlasting smiles and memories for every visitor to come here.
Iger saying he loves that people have high expectations of Disney.
They're always asking, what will Disney think of next? Only Disney could think of that. And actually, we set the bar high for ourselves, too. How can we be not just different, but different and better? And in many respects, that's what that is.
And what comes next puts a smile on Iger's face today.
Looking forward to being invited to the opening.
Oh, likewise. I'm going to see you in the castle. And in addition to that brand new castle, the vision for all of this is a brand new kind of Disney park, things that people have never experienced before. I also asked Bob Iger what this means for jobs back in the United States, and he said it will take a lot of U.S. employees, their creativity, to bring all of this to life. In fact, they've already begun hiring some of them, and that's in addition to Disney's $30 billion plans at U.S. parks to build those out, and that means thousands of new jobs for Disney as well, guys.
Yeah, major project there. So good.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we are going to see a huge boost in hiring for WDI, which is awesome. I love to see that. Absolutely love to see that. But this is crazy, right? New park in Abu Dhabi, like we said at the top of the show, financially, creatively, probably a huge win. Culturally, a huge issue. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah,
but we got.
I do agree with it. I'm gonna just, as I said, just as being an optimistic, I'm gonna hold judgment completely on that because that hasn't been officially announced of like what the plans is for that. I'm for sure, as I said, I'm for sure that on both sides, on Disney and Abu Dhabi with Miral, that they have already kind of crossed paths with this situation, so to speak. So I'm hoping.
Well, I mean, it's the law, though. I don't know. I mean, I want to be optimistic too. I just hope that it's the law. I mean, Miral has to still kind of work within the parameters of what's legal, you know. Right. So,
but I mean, it's still possible, like that. You know, if things could happen. You know, things could change in 5 or 6 years.
Absolutely, absolutely. Disney could. You're right. That's true. Disney could impact their culture and become a more inclusive, welcoming culture. That would be awesome. So hopefully that does happen. Hopefully that it works in that direction. We have another video though from Mr. Jack of DSNY, our good friend Jack. George, you know the drill. I'm going to play it and we're going to talk about it along the way. Let's rock and roll.
Hi there, Waltoneers. I'm Jack, and this is DSNY Newscast. And today, we have some major breaking news, as seemingly out of nowhere, Disney has just announced that they are building a brand new theme park and resort in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates, with it to be officially known as Disneyland Abu Dhabi. Now, that's the headline news. That's the news that you've probably seen on all the different social media sites and also in all the various articles on this topic. But what I want to do right now is dive into this in greater depth and discuss everything that we know so far about this project that's just been announced, and also answer some of the questions that you've probably got on this topic as well, and just discuss it in greater depth here on the channel.
Cool.
Now, with that being said, where I want to begin is actually talking about how this is going to impact the Disney parks in the United States and also the rest of the world. As last year at D23, Disney announced tons of new projects for the Disney parks around the world. And they also have previously announced a $60 billion investment into the Disney Experiences segment over the next 10 years. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is historically, when Disney announces a new theme park or resort on this scale, it typically does have a squeeze factor on the rest of the Disney park projects around the world as well. But with this Disneyland Abu Dhabi, that is not going to be the case, as from what we know about the deal and the setup and the arrangement that's been revealed so far, this is going to be completely independently funded away from the Walt Disney Company. So that means that the Miral Group, which is a UAE government-backed group in the United Arab Emirates, the Miral Group is going to be entirely responsible for funding the construction costs of Disney.
So basically, it's kind of like the equivalent of Oriental Land Company in Tokyo. So the Miral Group will build this thing, and they'll pay Disney a licensing fee or whatever to use the IP. You you know, and now it has worked very well in Japan, obviously. I mean, Japan, Tokyo Disneyland Resort is like the gold standard in the theme park industry. Can they mimic that success here creatively? We will see.
Disneyland Abu Dhabi, and also the operational costs of Disneyland Abu Dhabi as well, which means that Disney will not have any ownership stake in the Disneyland Abu Dhabi resort when it's complete, which is actually very different to what we've seen in recent years and the past few decades when it comes to Disney's expansion around the world. As Shanghai Disneyland, Disney does actually have an ownership stake. The Shanghai Shendi Group owns 57% of Shanghai Disneyland Resort, and Disney owns a 43% ownership in Shanghai Disney. And then with Hong Kong Disneyland, they own a 52-48 split. So Disney owns 48% of Hong Kong Disneyland Resort. And when it comes to Disneyland Paris, Disney entirely owns Disneyland Paris. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because Disney, when they have some sort of ownership stake in the resort, it means that they can benefit economically from that resort, but also they are vulnerable to that whole region as well, which means that if there's a downturn like we saw with the pandemic in 2020 and Shanghai Disneyland and then Hong Kong Disneyland being shuttered for much longer than what we saw with, let's say, Walt Disney World, it means that Disney also has to take that economic hit. Right. With Disneyland Abu Dhabi being completely independently operated away from the Walt Disney Company, it means that Disney will not be economically tied to the resort like that. But this is going to be very similar to the arrangement and the deal that was made with the Oriental Land Company in the 1980s. So if you're not aware of this, Tokyo Disneyland is completely independently owned and operated away from the Walt Disney Company. And the Oriental Land Company pay the construction cost of anything new that they're building, and they just license the Disney IP for the actual park itself. But they also have to operate the park to Disney standards. So that's going to be a very similar deal here with Disneyland Abu Dhabi, where Disney's operational standards must be met, and Disney is obviously going to have some say in the operational running of the resort, but they won't be financially tied to the operational running of the resort, if that makes sense.
And so because they're not financially tied to it, and they're basically, I mean, this is going to be basically a blank check park. Okay, let's be honest. Okay. But you still have Disney Imagineers designing for this thing. You're going to see, in my opinion, Tokyo Disney level quality, maybe even better for this park, because money is going to be no object. I can tell you that right now. And you're going to have Imagineers with their hands completely free to do whatever they want here. So, and here's the good thing too. When you have that situation, the R&D, like I said before, the R&D is paid for. So now, if they want to bring some of those really cool attractions from the Abu Dhabi park over here to California or to Florida, it's going to be cheaper because the R&D has already been, someone else already paid for that.
Well, and also too, we don't really know what the stipulation is of, like, if they can utilize an attraction that's going to go into the Disneyland Abu Dhabi park, because it may not be as restricted, so to speak, than OLC's choices. So as a costly kind of save thing, even though Abu Dhabi would be paying for the attraction over in their park, Disney might say, you know what, this is some good technology. This is a good ride. If they let us, able to still utilize that kind of ride system or that kind of tech, let's make one of our own and put it in Disneyland or put it in Walt Disney World. For which, really quick, before we continue on, I have to say, because the slogan, the tagline for this whole entire park is "A whole new world awaits." And I'm telling you, they are missing a golden opportunity if they don't make a state-of-the-art e-ticket attraction on this IP.
Yeah, they should. Renaissance era has been woefully underrepresented, I think, for Disney parks. And again, Disney Renaissance, thanks to Howard Ashman. A big, not just Howard Ashman. I don't want to diminish a lot of the other creatives who had a huge part in that era, but Howard was a giant in that era, including Aladdin. So yeah, but it will be very, very interesting to see what they come up with.
So I think all around, this is actually a much better arrangement and deal for expansion for the Disney parks worldwide than what we saw with something like Shanghai or Hong Kong, where Disney has to take an ownership stake in it, and it does put a squeeze on the rest of the Disney park projects around the world. So from that standpoint, Iger has stated that this Disneyland Abu Dhabi is going to be authentically Disney and distinctly Emirati. So it's going to be its own type of resort. It won't be necessarily just a copy and paste of, let's say, Disneyland or Walt Disney World into the region. It's going to be something completely new and unique to the region. And that actually brings me to the artwork. I haven't brought it up so far in the video because it is actually extremely vague, but you can see in this very, very early Blue Sky artwork, it's not really giving anything away in terms of the actual attractions within this park or anything like that. Disney CEO Bob Iger did actually mention on CNBC that they are only just beginning the developmental stage for this whole theme park and resort, and it typically takes around 2 years to creatively develop and design a theme park.
I still think it's so funny, and this was like probably the one time he couldn't wait to go on CNBC to say like we're getting a whole nother theme park.
Yeah. Oh yeah, CNBC, man. And I'm kind of glad that Comcast is like spinning CNBC off with some other like television stuff and cable stuff. I don't know, man. They've been like pretty like bombastically biased against Disney because that's their biggest competition, you know. Yeah. But CNBC is a big influence, I think, on the markets and stuff. It's a big player in that whole financial industry. So I think there is a little bit of a conflict of interest. Not saying that Comcast is breaking the law; they're absolutely within the perimeters of the law. But just I just feel like they've kind of they've overstepped. And they've made it very known that we're gonna go for the mouse house. You know what I'm saying? And when you're a financial news organization, it's tacky, in my opinion. But
of this size, and then it will probably take around 5 years to construct it. So we're currently 2025. We're looking roughly around 2032 probably for the opening. That's obviously not been announced, but it's an estimation of when it could open, this Disneyland Abu Dhabi. Now, I do want to go back to the arrangement here because this is, something that is very critical to the deal. And a lot of people will say, oh, well, this is going to take away from Imagineering's, resources and stuff like that. But in many ways, I think it's very good for Walt Disney Imagineering and also the Disney company as a whole.
Smart man.
With this deal, Disney is being paid to design all new attractions, all new technology, and basically someone else will be funding a lot of the research and development for these attractions and projects. And then that will eventually trickle down into all the advancements they make for these new attractions will trickle down into the rest of the Disney parks around the world as well.
And we've made that point earlier on in the show. So the R&D will basically get a blank check. This Abu Dhabi park is going to be just blank checking it the whole way through it. Okay, it's going to be crazy. But once the bulk of that R&D is paid for the Abu Dhabi park, now when you decide to bring it to, say, Anaheim for like DCA, because we're going to make DCA as good as Disneyland, right, Disney? we're going to do right by Disneyland's sister park, right, Disney? And we're going to make DCA as good as Disneyland, right, Disney? So when they bring over the cool stuff from Abu Dhabi here to DCA, the R&D is already paid for, so it's cheaper. So this is almost like a playground for like really cool tech, really cool stuff, and then it brings the price down when it eventually comes over here to DCA. So I actually love that idea. I'm with Jack on that. I think it's awesome. So yeah, that's creatively, like we said, it's a huge win for Disney. They can really play an experiment. Imagineers will have next to a non-existent budget over there. Okay, it's going to be like Tokyo all over again. It might even be crazier than Tokyo, even. So we'll
because literally they will not have the pressure of going up to their bosses and their boss's boss to say, okay, can we get a little bit more funds on this, or what is our budget plan? It's like they don't have to worry about any of that. So literally they have a blank canvas, and that canvas is, it's their playground. They could pretty much, the sky's the limit really on that one for sure. Now, really quick before you continue on with the video, over in the like Abu Dhabi, Middle East area, is there any Disney IP that's restricted? Do you know?
That's a tough one, bro. I don't really know. I know they're not, like we said at the top of the show, they're not friendly to the LGBTQ community at all, the queer community, not at all, which is very, very unfortunate. But I'm not really sure outside of that. So that's interesting, though. That is interesting. You know, China. I know China has a lot of, you know, China, right? They got their issues too. So some of these other places in the world, they have their own cultures and their own things. And yeah, I'm sure there's some IP though that they're not going to be okay with. I'm almost certain of it.
So that I see as a net benefit. And also, you got to see it as Walt Disney Imagineering. They are being contracted to do this. And if they're being offered this amount of money to design a brand new park, it means it's great for creatives working on these projects and upcoming Imagineers to learn their craft and work on this project like that and expand Imagineering from that standpoint. And I just think that Imagineering getting this kind of work for this project here, we saw how well it worked out with Oriental Land Company and Tokyo Disney.
Yes.
And, you know, that's the similar kind of thing we're going to see with Disneyland Abu Dhabi. Now, I want to talk about the Mill Group, which is the partnership that Disney's having with this independent, you know, UAE government-backed group to build Disneyland Abu Dhabi. Now, they've already built themed entertainment parks and complexes at the same location where they're going to be building Disneyland Abu Dhabi. And they've built Ferrari World Abu Dhabi, Yas Water World, Warner Brothers World Abu Dhabi, which is an indoor theme park. I'll come back to that in a minute. And also SeaWorld Abu Dhabi. And so with the Mill Group working on this, they do actually have a lot of experience building themed entertainment complexes like what you'd expect.
And that's, I'm telling you right now, and maybe people disagree with me at home, I love the Warner Brothers IP. I absolutely love Warner Brothers. I love the DC, like DC, obviously what we're seeing here, but even beyond that, you got Looney Tunes, Animaniacs, Tiny Toons, you got all the Hanna-Barbera and Cartoon Network stuff. That's all Warner Brothers. Like the stuff you could do in a theme park environment with this IP is through the roof, absolutely through the roof. That's not even including stuff like Lord of the Rings. Warner Brothers has a library, like a massive, crazy good library. Unfortunately, here in the States, Six Flags has the licensing rights to that IP, which sucks. Anyway, shout out to Catwoman right here.
Expect from a Disneyland Abu Dhabi. And so unlike what we saw with Shanghai Disneyland, where Disney had to, you know, teach a lot of the themed entertainment craft to the artisans in the region, that won't be 100% necessary with this. They can get going with the construction of this a lot quicker because they won't need to train up the local workforce as much. Now, the reason why I mentioned indoor theme park is because it has been stated that this Disneyland Abu Dhabi will be an outdoor theme park, or at least that's what's been mentioned so far. It's going to be somewhat outdoors. I'm personally expecting it to probably have huge indoor lands within massive buildings because obviously the climate in the region, it's extremely hot, and they probably will need to have some huge indoor lands. But at least I think their version of what they'll have, the main street or the entrance of the park and the castle, will probably be an outdoor portion of the park in the central hub. What we do know is that it's going to have waterfront within the actual theme park as well, natural waterfront there from Yas Island, and that will be a big part of the actual theme park itself. And from what we can look at with the castle, it's very distinctly Emirati. It's not going to be a traditional European style castle. This is going to be probably a modern take on a castle for the region like that, and it's extremely interesting to see what that will end up looking like in the final product. But I want to now talk about the location, as this is very important. The UAE is a 4-hour flight apparently from 1/3 of the world's population, and apparently 500 million people with the money. This is very important. 500 million people who are income qualified live within a 4-hour flight of the destination. So 500 million people will be economically within the region, be able to visit this Disneyland Abu Dhabi. So that's why they've gone for this exact location in Abu Dhabi. And then the other reason is because the UAE is the largest global airline hub in the world. And this has just been stated here that they have a...
And real quick, not to interrupt Jack, because I love where Jack is going with this. This is fascinating stuff. But like, when Disney decides to put a new theme park somewhere in the world, I mean, because look, this is only the 7th one they've done. The 7th resort. You know what I'm saying? This isn't like Six Flags or like Cedar Fair that just puts them everywhere. Yeah. When Disney decides to build these places, there's a lot of research that goes into this stuff, like crazy stuff. Like they look into this with a fine-tooth comb. So all of what Jack is stating is stuff that they've factored into this. They factored into how popular is their IP in this region and all that other stuff. You know what I'm saying? I wish they would have factored in the cultural stuff more when deciding this area, because that's disappointing. But in terms of like the IP, in terms of like the locale with the transportation hub and all that stuff, believe me, Disney has looked into this 15,000 different ways. And yeah, before making, this is a big decision, everybody. This is a huge decision. This is not something that they just made yesterday.
120 million passengers traveling through either Abu Dhabi or Dubai each year, as it's a major global airline hub. And Yas Island, which is where this Disneyland Abu Dhabi is going to be built, is only 5 miles away from the Abu Dhabi International Airport.
Wow.
And so this island of Yas Island was a natural island located next to the airport, and in 2006 it started to be expanded and stuff like that, and it's been greatly enlarged over time by significant land reclamation and also reshaping and the infrastructure development of the actual island itself. It's grown in size through man-made reclaiming of the land itself. But it does seem, at least looking at the map of Yas Island, that they do have expansion spots. And I think up in the top left-hand corner, this is no way being stated in any news article, but just looking at Yas Island from this satellite imagery here, the top left-hand corner, they do have a sizable waterfront there. And could that be the location of where this Disneyland Abu Dhabi goes? Quite possibly. Yeah. Just going off what they've said with having a waterfront for this theme park and needing the size on and scale that they will require for a Disneyland park of this type. But I've also got to mention that this isn't the first time that a major American theme park has been announced for the UAE. As back in 2007, Universal Studios Dubai Land was announced, and it was a partnership very similar to, the Disney Mill Group partnership here between Universal and Tatweer for the construction of Universal Studios Dubai Land. And the construction did actually break ground, and they did actually build the iconic Universal Studios arch. But then the 2008 global financial crisis happened, and many projects in Dubai Land ended up being postponed indefinitely. And then by 2016, it became very clear that the project for Universal Studios Dubai Land was completely cancelled. Now, that's over in Dubai, obviously, within the UAE. This is going to be Abu Dhabi with the Yas Island as a location. So we'll see how it goes. That's everything we know so far on this project. Josh D'Amaro has mentioned that we will be finding out more about this Disneyland.
Now, first of all, I just want to say, collar shirt, no tie, suit jacket, classic Josh. Absolute classic Josh. Looking good, buddy. Looking good.
Abu Dhabi fairly shortly. So hopefully we'll get more details on what might be included in terms of lands and rides and, more artwork for this in the coming months. So stay tuned to the channel for all that. I'll cover it here when it breaks and we find out the rest of the details. But now it's over to you, the Walton is.
So huge shout out to Jack. We love Jack. He is a friend of the channel, 1000%. Great content and a good friend of ours. So I will be linking, obviously, his channel information. If you're not subscribed, look, if you're a Disney fan, and you're watching OG55 and you are not aware of DSNY, where have you been? Where have you been? But by chance you don't know who Jack from DSNY is, in the description down below, I'm going to hook you up and you can actually subscribe to him, because you should. He is amazing and he does great stuff. So, but George, yeah, I mean, this Abu Dhabi thing, it's there's some blessings to it. Absolutely. Financially, I think for Disney, I think it's going to work out. I think it'll be just fine. I think creatively it'll work out. But our friends and family in the LGBTQT community, not great. You know what I'm saying? So it's Man, it's a tough one. But any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to mention too, being that the head of Mural or Mural, I do apologize. I can never get the actual name of it correctly, but he was saying to the news person from Good Morning America that he wants it up like very soon. So I mean, the fact that they're going to be forking out the money, they don't have to work on a budget plan. Things are going to be moving very quickly, and who's even to say we may get some news out of that as part of Destination D23, because the whole theme of this particular one is the worlds of Disney. So I can definitely see them incorporating that. And not to mention, next year is the next D23 Ultimate Fan event in 2026. So
yeah,
a lot can happen within that time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'll see. We will absolutely see. But when Disney doesn't have to pay for it, you will see how fast they get to moving on this thing. Because one of the big things with Disney, right? And it's a strategic move, so I get it. But they stretch these construction projects out over multiple fiscal periods on purpose. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's over multiple fiscal year periods, and they purposely sort of foot drag. When they're not paying for it, though, you will see this Abu Dhabi thing rise up pretty fast, dude.
Yeah.
Now it's gonna. Now there were talks in the Community 2030. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing opens before Pandora at DCA.
This thing is going to open before we get the announcement of where Pandora is going.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked, bro. I would not be shocked. So we'll see, man. But interesting stuff. I did not expect to wake up to that news.
Yeah,
and
I didn't either. It was like a kid waking up Christmas morning, and you whoa, that was a surprise.
Well, not even Christmas. Yeah, not even Christmas. It's like waking up like on a Tuesday in like March. Like, oh shit, why do I have presents in my like it's crazy, right? But like for me, like it is bittersweet though, because I do feel for a lot of people who don't feel safe over there and everything. But like you said, George, I think that maybe hopefully, to be optimistic, hopefully Disney kind of moving in, Disney being such a huge economic force, right? Economic and cultural force. Hopefully Disney can kind of rub off on that part of the world and kind of change things for the better, and start reversing some of this anti-queer, anti-LGBTQ stuff. And yeah, we'll see, but we'll keep an eye on it. This is a big story, and it does mean a lot more jobs for WDI out here in Glendale, California. California, the what is it, George? I think it's the fourth largest economy in the world.
Woke up looking for the broccoli.
You know what I'm saying? Just California, just California, just the fourth largest economy in the world. No biggie, But no, in all seriousness, it's great news for jobs out here in Cali, and we welcome that. So there's good stuff with this. There is. And there's also some bad stuff, some error stuff, right? But George, where can everybody find you on social media, sir?
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base on Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info. And you could also check out my new YouTube channel, Citrico Central, sister channel to Orange Grove 55.
There we go. Comment down below. I know this is kind of a controversial topic. Just be civil in the comments, but we'd love to hear from you. Whatever your opinion, whatever your standpoint is on this, we would love to hear from you. Comment down below. I want to thank Jack from DSNY for fantastic content. You're amazing, sir. Keep it up. But everybody, thank you for watching this episode of OG55. And until the next time, see you later.
Thank you for watching OG55. If you aren't already, consider becoming a member today.